It was only after we got married that I discovered my husband once had an ex-girlfriend he had loved deeply. The night before their wedding, the girl drove through the night to give herself to him, just to say goodbye to her youth. When I found out, my husband begged me not to tell anyone. If you do, it'll completely ruin her life. He pleaded. Chapter 1. One day, while browsing a website, I stumbled upon a heartbreaking love story. A blogger named to arrive with graceful delay was sharing her 6-year-long relationship with her ex-boyfriend. Their story felt like something straight out of a romantic drama. He was handsome, brilliant, and came from a well-off family. She, on the other hand, looked ordinary, came from modest circumstances, and barely managed to pass her classes. But none of that stopped him from loving her. He fought for her, skipped class for her, changed his university choice for her, did all sorts of reckless things in the name of love. But in the end, they broke up due to his mother's strong disapproval. After the breakup, they lived in different cities, deleted all forms of contact, and never spoke again. But she never got over him. She decided she would live alone forever. After experiencing a love so intense and radiant, she couldn't settle for anything less. However, as years passed, her parents became increasingly concerned about her future. This year, her mother was diagnosed with cancer. On her deathbed, her final wish was to see her daughter get married. She couldn't bear to let her mother down. So, with resignation, she agreed to marry just any man. There were only 3 days left until she would become someone else's wife. And then, after much inner struggle, she decided to do one last crazy thing. She drove for an entire day and night, crossing half the country to the city where her ex-boyfriend now lived, just to see him. She wore the matching couple's t-shirt they used to wear, styled her hair in the way he liked most, and called him. I just want to see him one last time, hug him once more, and say goodbye to my youth. She said. What a touching story. If only the male protagonist wasn't my husband. Chapter 2. Today was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I found out I was pregnant. Francis and I have been married for 3 years. I had been focusing on my career, so we hadn't planned for children until now. Francis always respected my decision, but a little over 3 months ago, on his birthday, he suddenly made a heartfelt wish. He said he wanted a child. He said he was already 32, and his career was established. From both a mental and financial standpoint, he felt fully ready to be a responsible father. I'll do my best to be a good dad, and give our child all the love I missed out on while growing up. I want him to grow up without the weight of expectations, to be free to just be himself. I want to watch that little him grow, like I'm getting the chance to grow up all over again. This time from the outside in. Vicky, can you grant me this wish? When he said this, his dark eyes were locked onto mine, filled with longing and deep affection. It felt like my heart was caught in a net, tingling, tender, and aching all at once. Francis grew up in a single-parent household. Because his father was never around, his mother was especially strict with him. Their relationship had always been emotionally distant. So when he said he longed to have a child of his own, it was impossible for me not to be moved. Besides, I was turning 30 soon. My career had finally stabilized. It felt like the right time to have a baby. From that day on, we began trying. Throughout the process, we could both feel it, the anticipation and eagerness for this new life to arrive. That's why, the moment I got the results at the hospital, I couldn't wait to tell Francis. I messaged him, "Be sure to come home early tonight, I have a surprise for you." He replied quickly, "Okay." A second later, he followed up, "Is it the kind of surprise I'm thinking of?" I replied, "It's a secret." He sent back a firework emoji. Clearly, he already knew exactly what I meant. I felt a bit regretful that the surprise had been guessed, but on second thought, it only showed how much he, just like me, had been yearning for this child. With that joy in my heart, I headed home. Then, Francis called me. He apologized profusely, saying there was an urgent matter at work that needed his personal attention. I might have to be out of town for a few days. He sounded full of guilt. As the founder of his company, his schedule was always packed. But sudden business trips like this were rare. I didn't doubt him. I thought it must truly be an emergency. I even asked if he needed me to help pack and bring his luggage to the office. He paused for a moment, then said, "No need. I have travel essentials in my office. Besides, the weather's scorching. Just stay home and wait for me. Be good." That last word, be good, his voice dropped to a low murmur, and some strange electric current seemed to pass through the receiver and hit me, making my face flush. Francis and I had dated for a year, and been married for 3. This was the first time he had spoken to me in such an intimate tone. When we first met, he called me Miss Lynn. After we became a couple, even after marriage, he always called me Vicky. I had once regretted that Francis and I never had any pet names for each other like other couples did. But then I thought of Francis, always so composed, like a proper old-school gentleman, and I let it go. I chose him because of his steady, rock-solid character. I shouldn't have expected him to have the fiery passion of a volcano. I've always been someone who knows how to appreciate what I have. Wanting everything at once just isn't my style. But now, seeing this cup of warm water that is Francis finally beginning to boil for me, how could I not be happy? So even though Francis didn't rush home immediately to celebrate the little life growing inside me, I didn't think much of it. I even happily made myself a healthy meal. After dinner, with nothing else to do, I stumbled across that post again. The photo the girl shared was taken right outside my husband's company building. Even then, I still didn't think of Francis. I just thought, wow, this drama is happening right near me. I even considered sharing the post with him so he could catch a front row seat to the story unfolding outside his office. But then I saw the second photo. The girl had posted a half-body selfie. She was wearing a t-shirt with a little bear printed on the chest. The caption read, "Back in high school during the art festival, our class did a skit where the teacher had us play a couple. This was the matching outfit we bought with class funds for the performance. Back then, I liked him, but I didn't know if he liked me. So when I wore this shirt and stood face to face with him, I couldn't even look into his eyes." Later, after we got together, he told me he felt the same way. He couldn't look into my eyes either. I've kept this shirt all these years. Maybe today is the last time I'll ever wear it. Even though she covered her face, I recognized that shirt in an instant. I'd seen it before. To be precise, I had seen that blue shirt with the little bear in my husband's closet. The Francis I knew was the kind of elite man who always dressed properly, even on his days off. So when I saw that cute bear shirt back then, I was genuinely surprised. I asked him, "You actually own something this cute? Didn't expect that from you." But Francis quickly took the shirt away, saying it belonged to his cousin's son. "He used to stay at my place a lot. I'll return it to him later." He looked completely natural when he said it, so I didn't question it any further. But I'm sure, after that day, I never saw that shirt in our house again. Now, staring at those 2 identical little bears, one on my phone screen, one from my memory of our closet, it felt like they were mocking me for being the world's biggest fool. My hand instinctively moved to my belly, and in that instant, I suddenly understood a lot. Like why Francis was always so gentle and composed with me. I've known him for 4 years. From the moment he pursued me, he seemed like a mature, self-sufficient man. He was always the perfect gentleman, polite, thoughtful, refined. He respected my preferences, supported my choices, remembered every holiday and anniversary, and always prepared gifts with care. But he never called me by a pet name, never wore a matching outfit with me, even when we walked side by side on the street. He rarely held my hand. When I once complained about it, he just looked at me helplessly and apologized. He told me that growing up in his family, he never learned how to be close to someone he loved. Overly intimate relationships always make me uncomfortable. He said it with such confusion and guilt in his eyes, like a lost little boy who didn't know what to do. My heart melted, so I never asked him to do anything that would make him uncomfortable again. Turns out, pitying a man can ruin your whole life. What made him uncomfortable wasn't intimacy. It was me. But back then, it was him who chased after me first. Tears blurred my vision. The hurt and anger nearly made me fall apart. Still, I forced myself to stay calm and called Francis's assistant. I asked, "Has Francis left the office yet? Why isn't he home?" The assistant answered without hesitation. "It takes at least 40 minutes to get home from the office. He left just 10 minutes ago. Please wait a little longer." That assistant had been with Francis for 8 years. He was his most trusted right-hand man. If even he didn't know about any business trip, then clearly, there was no business trip. After hearing that, It felt like I had fallen into an ice-cold abyss. For the first time in my life, I realized I had been living inside a massive lie. Chapter 3. After taking a deep breath, I reopened the girl's social media account. Beneath her half-body selfie, countless people were waiting eagerly for updates. Many were cheering her on, saying they saw in her the reflection of their own hopeless love. I wish I could be as brave as you. Others advised her that a relationship that didn't work out simply meant the two people weren't right for each other, and that drowning in the past would only hurt herself. Life should move forward. Showing up in your ex's life like this isn't good for anyone. Only a few scattered comments condemned her behavior as lacking basic morals. Aren't you about to get married? What about your fiancé? How is this fair to him? But those few criticisms were quickly drowned in a wave of sympathy and admiration. She didn't even do anything. What's wrong with just seeing him one last time? She knows it's wrong, but she can't help it. She just loves him too much. I couldn't help it. My hands trembled as I typed my reply. So just because she loves too much, she gets to hurt someone else without consequences? Did she ever consider how her ex's current partner might feel? Sure, she couldn't help it. Then why didn't she go die for love back then? Maybe my words were too harsh. They triggered a flood of angry replies. People told me to act like a decent human being, that my venomous mouth would bring karma upon me. She just met up with him. She didn't do anything. How is that disturbing his current relationship? Besides, the blogger never said the ex had a new partner. You're just assuming things. I held back the urge to type the words, I'm the current partner. Reason told me not to alert the enemy. If everything was really as I suspected, then I had to make sure Francis paid the price he deserved. In less than 10 minutes, the post had over 200 comments. Soon after, she posted an update saying they had already met. Seeing him again, our eyes turned red. He cried too. Thank you all for your concern. I still have my moral compass. I would never hurt a third person. We reached an agreement. He'll help me with one last thing, and then I'll leave. From now on, we'll never see each other again, not even in passing. A commenter asked her what that one last thing was. She replied, a wish. Shortly after, she posted another photo. In the image was our car, and my husband's hand on the wheel. She captioned it, he's driving, taking me to ride the Ferris wheel. Our very first date was at the Ferris wheel. My family background wasn't good, and at first I thought I wasn't good enough for him. I didn't dare accept his confession, but that day, he took me to the Ferris wheel. In the cabin, he held my hand for the first time and told me to look up at the vast sky, at the drifting clouds. He said he might not be able to solve all my problems in life, but at the very least, when I was with him, he hoped I could feel completely free. That was the moment I was moved, and I said yes to being with him. We were together for 6 years. He gave me the best of everything he could. Those 6 years were the happiest of my life. He took me to so many places. We went skydiving, rock climbing, diving. I was always timid, but as long as he was with me, I wasn't afraid of anything. He came from a wealthy family, but he still cooked for me during my period. He even washed my underwear. He always told me I deserved the best the world had to offer. He helped me become a better version of myself. That's why, even after we broke up, I never resented him. I only hated that I wasn't good enough for someone like him, that I couldn't make it to the end with him. I really envy his wife. I've seen her resume, graduate of a top university, beautiful and poised, with a successful career. She's everything I dreamed of becoming. When I look at her, I realize I don't even have the right to be jealous, because even I believe that only someone like her deserves to stand by his side. I have nothing, just a few memories. Netizens were moved to tears by her words. They said she had suffered so much and still remained kind. All I felt was rage. Does she seriously think I'd be moved to tears just because she acknowledged me? The very thought that someone like her has been lurking in the shadows like a filthy little bug, spying on my life, makes me sick to my stomach. Someone as good as me, why should I be reduced to the background character of their great love story? Francis was my first love. He was the one who pursued me. That piece of trash hid his past from me and made me, without my knowledge or consent, the prologue to his so-called epic romance. In that moment, a flood of memories came rushing back. During the first year Francis and I were together, I invited him to visit a newly opened amusement park. He rejected me on the spot. His reason sounded perfectly reasonable. That's a place for kids. I'm not into that kind of thing. I also enjoy diving, rock climbing, skydiving, but Francis never once did any of those things with me. Whenever I asked him to join me, he would just smile and say he wasn't interested. When we traveled together, he never planned anything in advance. He always preferred to stay at a resort, eat, drink, and do absolutely nothing. He said he worked too hard and just wanted to completely relax during his time off. He never expected me to cook, but he never cooked for me either. He said he didn't like how it felt to be in the kitchen, and asked for my understanding. Turns out, it's not that he didn't like it. He just didn't think I was worth the effort. All of his love, all of his passion, he had already poured it out for his ex. What he gave me was a burnt-out shell of a man, walking through life like a soulless puppet. But why? Why did I deserve that? I made up my mind. I will get a divorce, and I will get the evidence I need. Chapter 4. There's only one amusement park in our city with a Ferris wheel. I drove straight there, in the parking lot. Sure enough, I found my husband's car. I parked mine not far from his. From the parking lot, the Ferris wheel under the setting sun looked so beautifully romantic. They say a Ferris wheel turns toward happiness. Unfortunately, that happiness has nothing to do with me anymore. I sent a message to my husband on WeChat. I told him I was feeling a little discomfort in my stomach, and asked if he could cancel his business trip. This was the last chance I was giving him. If he could give me the answer I was hoping for, I thought maybe I'd be willing to walk away peacefully. But unfortunately, my message sank into silence like a stone in water. Until night fully fell, I received no reply. As the light faded inch by inch before my eyes, my heart turned cold inch by inch. After what felt like a long time, Francis and that woman finally appeared in the parking lot, hand in hand. I turned on the camcorder I had prepared earlier and began recording. 4K high definition, perfectly fitting for their earth-shattering, tear-inducing romance. He opened the car door for her. She stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the forehead. Francis froze slightly, seemingly shaken by that kiss. She pulled away right after, smiled brightly, waved goodbye, and turned to leave. The moment she turned around, tears were clearly streaming down her face. Francis stood still, blankly watching her back. The confusion and heartbreak on his face was something I knew all too well. It made me want to punch him right then and there. And sure enough, just as I expected, he chased after her. After a bit of pulling and resistance, he finally embraced the woman he loved, and then kissed her, so tenderly, like he was holding a rare treasure. It was obvious, they were both completely lost in it. These two star-crossed lovers had, in this very moment, overcome the obstacles of the world and the demons in their hearts, deciding to be together once again. What a perfect, happy ending. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. After their long kiss, he stuffed her into the car and drove off. I stepped on the gas and followed. I assumed they were heading to a hotel, to rekindle their old flame. But Francis drove into a residential neighborhood instead. It was a mediocre area. The buildings were old. It wasn't even a gated community. My car followed them slowly into the complex. Soon, they parked the car and walked together into one of the apartment buildings. I stood downstairs. Not long after, the top floor lights came on. My emotions screamed at me to charge up there and kick down the door, to trap the cheating couple inside and beat the hell out of them. But my rational mind held me back. After such a long separation, why did Francis bring his ex to this old, unremarkable apartment? Instinct told me, this place had to hold some hidden secret. I forced myself to stay calm. I sent the address to my best friend, Sophia, and asked her to come immediately. If things were about to get ugly, I wasn't sure I could take both of them on by myself. Sophia replied, "What the hell are you doing out there this late? Don't tell me you're catching your man cheating?" She joked. And just like that, the tears I had been holding back came rushing out in a flood. Chapter 5. Sophia immediately sensed something was wrong. Her voice jumped an octave. Wait, no way. Don't tell me I was actually right? I tried my best to suppress the choking in my voice. Yes, caught him red-handed. Are you coming or not? Sophia's voice went instantly calm. Stay right there. Don't do anything reckless. No matter what happens. Wait until I get there. After hanging up, I broke down crying in the dim light of my car. To say I wasn't heartbroken, wasn't devastated, that would be a lie. I didn't come from a happy home. When I was 6, my father divorced my mother because of an affair. By the time I was 12, my mother died of cancer. I was left with no family, no home. I had always longed for the warmth of a real family. Francis once made me believe I had found love. He was my first love. We met at work, tall, handsome, successful. When he was pursuing me, it seemed like he gave it his all. He would wait 2 hours downstairs at my office just to walk me home. He had roses flown in from the Netherlands to my workplace every day. He took me all over the city to sample the best food. He warmed water for me and looked after me during my period. But now I understand, those sweet little details I once treasured so deeply were nothing more than a half-hearted performance. He never truly meant it. He had no right to deceive me. I never once thought about using marriage to gain anything. I studied hard, worked harder, and kept pushing myself forward, all so I wouldn't end up like my mother. I always wanted to be the one making choices, not someone who got chosen or abandoned. I still remember the first time I came across the Japanese phrase ishokenmei. It felt like lightning struck my heart. To stake your life on a single thread, gripping your hair so you don't fall, like the pain doesn't even matter, because survival comes first. I knew I had no one to rely on but myself, so I lived with the attitude of ishokenmei, putting everything I had into chasing happiness. When I met Francis, I genuinely thought fate was finally being kind to me, that my life could finally catch a breath. On the day we got our marriage certificate, I took Francis to my mother's grave. I told her, "Mom, you can rest easy now. I've found my forever happiness." Francis, he was the one who shattered all my dreams of love and marriage. This, I told myself, would be the last time I allowed myself to be weak. After this cry, I would become a warrior, untouchable, unbreakable. By the time Sophia arrived, I had already composed myself. I shared the social media account of To Arrive with Graceful Delay with her. Since going upstairs, To Arrive with Graceful Delay hadn't posted a single update. But really, was that a surprise? Two ex-lovers who hadn't seen each other in years, going back to where it all began, and then retreating into a closed space. We all know what that means. No one needs to spell it out. Sophia hugged me tightly. "I know nothing I say right now will really fix this, but I still want you to know, I'm here. No matter what you decide to do, I'll stand by you. No conditions." I couldn't hold it in. My eyes turned red again, but deep down, I felt a powerful wave of gratitude. Thank God, at least I still have a friend. Fate hasn't been entirely cruel to me after all. I told Sophia my plan, and the two of us headed upstairs together. I used the address to order takeout. When the delivery guy arrived, I handed him a 200 yuan tip and explained the situation, asking him to help get the door open no matter what. He was a righteous guy and very helpful. He pretended to be from the neighborhood committee conducting a housing inspection, and soon managed to get the door open. Francis stood inside, stunned, wearing that same couple's shirt with the little bear on it, staring at me in disbelief. Sophia stormed past him and pulled me into the apartment. The place was warmly decorated, tidy, and clearly lived in. It gave off that cozy, homey feel. The first thing that caught my eye was the photo wall beside the dining table. It was filled with pictures of Francis and a woman in all sorts of moments together. The most eye-catching photo showed the woman in casual clothes, wearing a makeshift wedding veil, smiling at Francis as they gazed into each other's eyes. The way they looked at each other, so deep in love it practically overflowed. I suddenly remembered that when Francis and I first got married, I also wanted to make a photo wall at home, but he said it was tacky, didn't match the interior design. Besides, I'm not really into taking pictures, he said, and it was true. He rarely took photos. Aside from our wedding photos and a few formal occasions, he never took any pictures with me. But now, on this photo wall in front of me, he and the woman he truly loved had taken pictures at every meal, every moment, like they wanted to capture every breath they shared. Strangely, I no longer felt pain. All I felt was disgust. What made it worse was that the bedroom door was wide open, the inside a complete mess, and the air was filled with that unmistakable, sickening scent of sex. It was clear what had just happened. I doubled over and vomited on the spot. Francis's face changed. He reached out to steady me, But I backed away immediately, terrified he might touch me with those filthy hands. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. It was obvious who was showering. A woman's voice called out, "Who is it?" Without saying a word, Sophia kicked the bathroom door open. There she was, to arrive with graceful delay, screaming in shock. Sophia had been filming since the moment we entered. Now, she shoved the camera straight in her face. "Wow, Francis, that's low. Even for you. Your wife just found out she's pregnant. And here you are hiding your mistress in a love nest." Francis finally snapped out of it and lunged for Sophia's camera. Of course, I wasn't about to let him get it. I grabbed his arm to stop him. He swung around and shoved me hard. My body slammed against the floor. A sharp, piercing pain shot through my head. I'd hit it on the corner of the table. When I reached up and touched it, I felt blood. But Francis didn't even notice. He was busy grabbing a towel and wrapping it around his ex. She looked terrified, sobbing in his arms. Francis's face was grim. While shielding his precious woman, he still had the nerve to shout at Sophia with her camera. "Who let you in? This is trespassing. Get the hell out before I send you a legal notice." It had been a long time since I felt this way. It was like I had traveled back in time to the day my mom caught my dad cheating. My mom stormed in, and my dad protected the mistress, even dragged my mother 10 meters with his car. I ran after them, listening to my mother's soul-shattering screams. It tore me apart. That was the day I realized the man in the car wasn't my father. He was a monster. For a moment, I wanted to set the world on fire. It took me years, so many years, to finally tame the urge to destroy everything. And now, that desire was back, raging, alive. I grabbed the thermal kettle from the table, twisted off the lid, and splashed the hot water straight at Francis. He shrieked like a panicked monkey, flailing and stumbling across the room. And this was just the beginning. I picked up the projector stand and started swinging it sideways, smashing everything in sight. Bang, crack, smash. Solid wood bookshelf, Scandinavian-style side table, crystal chandelier, along with all those memory-filled mugs, dishes, figurines, souvenirs, clattered to the floor, shattered to pieces. Amid this satisfying symphony of destruction, I smiled. Francis looked at me, devastated. "Are you insane? Get out of here!" The mistress whimpered, wrapped in a towel. "Please don't. These are our memories." I smiled at the both of them, then raised the projector high above my head and chased them across the room. They could do nothing but duck and dodge through the chaos. Sophia stuck out her leg and tripped Francis. I lunged forward and kicked him straight between the legs. Francis let out a blood-curdling scream. It sounded beautiful. I liked it. I grabbed his hair and slapped him hard across the face. Smack, smack, smack. Nice and crisp. Switch to the left. Do it again. By the time the pain in his crotch wore off enough for him to resist, I had already landed over a dozen slaps on his face. I must have looked like a lunatic. In his eyes, I saw real fear. The mistress sobbed uncontrollably nearby. "Stop. Please stop. It's all my fault. It has nothing to do with him." Francis looked at her tenderly. "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault." Oh, how noble, how righteous. What a responsible man. He quickly turned to me, his eyes now full of contempt. "Victoria, I thought you were always composed and dignified. I didn't expect you to be such a shrew in private." Sophia spat right in his face. "You cheating piece of trash. Shut your damn mouth. Even a public toilet's cleaner than your conscience. Who the hell are you to lecture anyone about dignity?" Francis's chest heaved in fury, but he didn't dare snap back at Sophia. Instead, he turned to me. "Did she put you up to this? You need to be rational. Don't let her manipulate you. She's just bitter because she's not married and can't stand to see you happy. Have you thought about what you're doing right now? How the hell are we supposed to move on from this after tonight?" I laughed in disbelief. I only hated myself for not seeing earlier how patriarchal this man truly was. How the F*** do we move on? Simple, we get divorced. You idiot. I told him I'd be hiring a lawyer in the next couple of days to draft the divorce agreement. The house, the car, the savings, they're all mine. As for your company shares, I won't be greedy. We split the founder's stock 50-50. Francis sneered. "Victoria, why would I give you anything? I calmly packed up the camcorder and said, "Because of the footage I just shot. If I'm not mistaken, your little ex here flew across the country to sleep with you right before her wedding. So tell me, if I release this video, who's going to be humiliated? Your company's about to go public with a scandal like this. Do you think it still will? Compared to the future of your company, what I'm asking for is nothing." Francis's face turned red with rage. He barked at me, "I can't believe you're this kind of gold digger. I really misjudged you." I laughed right in his face. "Then good thing you know now. Perfect time to fix that mistake. But it seems like you didn't misjudge your precious ex. If you love her so much, why didn't you marry her back then? What was it? Was her education too low? Was she too plain looking? Or was it just that she wasn't good enough for you?" It was like I'd struck a nerve. Francis and the mistress both turned pale. The mistress nearly stomped her foot. "Shut up! You don't know anything about our past. Who are you to talk nonsense here?" Since coming in, this was the first time I really looked her in the eye. Originally, I hadn't intended to go after her. Sure, she was cheap, but the one who was even cheaper was the man. He's the one who entered a contract with me. There's sh*t all over the world. But if a man isn't a dog, it won't end up in his mouth. From beginning to end, the one I was angry with was this mud of a man I had chosen. But since the mistress insisted on begging for it, I had no issue giving her what she wanted. I looked at her with utter contempt. "You dragged yourself across the country just to throw your body at him, placing yourself in such a pathetic and pitiful position. Ever wonder why, if he really loved you, he never married you? I don't believe that in this modern society, anyone still can't get married because of external reasons. He didn't marry you because he thinks you're not worthy. But of course, you can never wake up someone who's pretending to sleep." Even after I slammed her with those words, she still buried her head in the sand like a dumb ostrich. She yelled at me, almost defiantly, "What would you know? Of course you wouldn't understand. Someone like you, born into a privileged family, elite education, standing in Rome the day you were born, you'll never understand the helplessness of people like me. Sure, what I did today isn't exactly honorable, but my love is pure. At least it's nobler than a marriage that's all about money and calculations. Who gave you the right to look down on me? Like a mushroom that doesn't know the passing of days, or a cicada that knows only summer. What's the point of reasoning with a bug?" I gave her a smile. Sure, I don't understand. Well then, I wish you two everlasting love. Chain yourselves together and don't ever crawl out to discuss the rest of us." After leaving Francis and Miranda, Sophia asked me what I planned to do next. I knew she meant what I was going to do about the baby. I placed a hand on my belly. My voice was strained but firm. "His father is trash. If I bring him into this world, I'm afraid he'll only feel ashamed to exist. The greatest wisdom an adult can have is knowing not to bring a life into the world lightly." After sleeping for an entire day, I went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor told me it was a very healthy embryo and asked if I was sure about my decision. I said yes. As I walked out of the hospital, Francis called me, but I didn't pick up. Over the next week, he called me countless times. I didn't answer any of them. What could he possibly say? Just beg for forgiveness and spit out some useless crap. After my lawyer delivered the divorce agreement to him, I asked the doctor to schedule the procedure. On the day of the surgery, I had Sophia help me hire someone to corner Francis in an alley and beat the living hell out of him. Sure, beating him couldn't bring back what I'd lost, but if I was going to suffer, he didn't deserve peace either. Maybe that beating finally made something click in his brain, because somehow, he found out which hospital I was at. He showed up in my room just after I was wheeled out of recovery. Following the surgery, maybe I didn't look too bad on the outside, because Francis didn't notice anything wrong. With his bruised, swollen face, he rushed to my bedside. Still mad at me? His face made me want to vomit. Sweating from head to toe, I simply asked, "Did you sign the divorce papers?" Francis tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. He didn't care. He kept performing his version of deep affection. "Vicky, I know you're still mad about what happened that day, but you already hit me, yelled at me. Shouldn't that be enough by now? I admit I still have some feelings for Miranda, but I've always taken our marriage seriously. From the day I married you, I never once thought about divorce. What happened with Miranda was just emotions getting the better of us. We both know there's no future between us. She said she wanted to see me one last time before getting married. I was moved, and I lost my head. I did some foolish things. I hope you can forgive me. We're all adults here. Who doesn't have a past? You could have just pretended not to know, and this would have blown over. But you insisted on making a scene and leaving everyone with no way out. Was that really necessary? I've thought it over. I still think we should give each other another chance. I'm older than you, and I'm willing to sincerely apologize. Can't you forgive me? If I weren't still physically recovering, I'd slap him right across the face. I looked at him coldly, but he didn't notice at all. I was totally out of my mind. These past few days, I've regretted everything. I shouldn't have taken your love for granted. I especially shouldn't have done something so absurd when you were pregnant. But believe me, I know I was wrong. I swear, I'll never contact Miranda again. What you said the other day was just out of anger. I know that. The fact that you were so sad, so angry, it means you still love me, right? Just as I expected, his bullshit was textbook. I couldn't be bothered to listen anymore, so I simply told him. I already terminated the pregnancy. Francis, who'd just been putting on his remorseful act, instantly flipped. How could you? Don't you know how much I was looking forward to this child? Do you realize that after doing this, there's no chance for us anymore? He started roaring like some cheap drama's idiot male lead. Why can't you just forgive me over something so small? Everyone makes mistakes. Why can't you just tolerate a little? He grabbed my collar and shouted at me. His face flushed red, veins bulging from his neck in fury. He looked terrifying. I had no doubt that if we weren't in a hospital room right now, he would have hit me, but I wasn't afraid of him. I looked straight into his eyes and said calmly, "Save your disgusting, putrid lines for the woman you really love. I don't pick up trash, and you're revolting." Maybe it was the first time he truly realized he was trash. Francis finally cracked. He nearly stomped his foot as he shouted, "So you divorce me, and what, you think your life will get better? Let me tell you, Victoria, once you divorce me, you'll have nothing. What's your next move? Go back to your father's house? Ha, that stepmother of yours will laugh in your face. Go ahead. Ruin yourself, give everyone a front row seat to the circus." Already physically and emotionally drained, I was nearly pushed over the edge. For the first time, I saw clearly that Francis hadn't chosen to marry me out of love. There had been layers of calculation behind his decision. First, I had solid personal qualities, good looks, good figure, good education, and good income. I gave him face when he brought me out in public. Second, my family background looked good on paper. Even though my parents divorced and I was raised by my mother, my father was the top official in one of the most powerful departments in the city. Business people were always eager to stay on his good side, which meant when Francis was out there trying to close deals or land sponsorships, he could drop my dad's name. Third, my father and I weren't close anymore. He had a new wife and a daughter with her. That distance made it so Francis didn't have to actually do anything for my father, while still using his name to pull in investments. In other words, marrying me gave Francis every advantage, and required zero obligations. The only reason he dared to do all that and say such things was because he believed I had no one behind me, that he could control me as he pleased. But he was dead wrong about me. Despite the excruciating pain in both body and mind, I deliberately shot him a sideways glance and said, "Looks like the one who's lost everything is you. Since you brought up my dad and my stepmother, I'll tell you this, those two only ever taught me one thing in this life: never wait around for someone else to save you." My voice wasn't loud, but Francis was clearly shaken. I smiled faintly. "From the moment you betrayed me, I had already planned every step of our divorce. From now on, brace yourself." Francis nearly lost his mind. "Victoria, I really misjudged you. I didn't expect you to be this calculating. You planned from the beginning to divorce me and split my assets. So that's what it was." Francis was just afraid that I'd take part of his fortune in the divorce. Seriously? Right in front of him, I dialed Miranda's number. "Hello, Miranda, right?" Francis came to beg me not to divorce him. "I'll send you the recording so you can hear it yourself. You be the judge, see if your great love even amounts to a damn thing. Don't worry, as long as he signs the divorce papers, that piece of trash is all yours." Straight into your little trash can. I hit send and forwarded the audio to Miranda, the other party in this aesthetic disaster. Francis was furious when he saw what I'd done. His fists even clenched. But I wasn't afraid. I was sure that in a hospital room full of surveillance cameras, he wouldn't dare do anything. Sure enough, Sophia and a nurse arrived shortly after and kicked him out. After Francis left, Sophia cried, heartbroken. I, on the other hand, didn't shed a single tear. Of course I was hurt, but adults must take responsibility for their own choices. Choosing the wrong husband isn't the scary part. The real tragedy is not having the courage to admit it and continuing down the wrong path. I was lucky. I had both the courage and the opportunity to choose again. Francis came looking for me a few more times, but Sophia always sent him packing with a tongue lashing. The last time, I told him directly, if you refuse to divorce, then I'll see you in court. He knew the evidence I held would cost him, and that fear finally broke him. Soon, he agreed to the divorce. As I had hoped, I walked away with a significant portion of assets, including but not limited to all our joint savings during the marriage, our 20 million yuan marital home, and 1/3 of Francis's shares in his company. Oh, and the love nest. Yes, that apartment too. Apparently, that was the place Francis and Miranda once rented together. Even after they broke up, he couldn't bear to cancel the lease and kept paying rent. Soon after our wedding, in memory of his epic romance, he went ahead and bought the place. Thanks to his precious love, I ended up with half that apartment. Francis didn't want to sell it, so he paid me half its value in cash. When we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau with our divorce certificates, Francis spat venomously. Can't believe I was blind enough to marry such a venomous woman like you. I didn't even flinch. I wished him and his beloved a happy marriage and a long life together. His face turned grim. I really didn't get it. Wasn't this exactly what he'd been dreaming of? What was he so upset about? According to the divorce agreement, I deleted the video of him and Miranda. That was one of Francis's conditions for agreeing to the divorce. I knew what he was thinking. As long as the world didn't see him for the cheating scumbag he was, he'd still be the CEO of his company. Investors and partners would still do business with him. In other words, professionally, he still had a future, so long as his career didn't collapse. Bouncing back was only a matter of time. Originally, I'd thought about leaking that video, going nuclear, dragging us both down. But once I calmed down, I realized my life is far too valuable to waste on trash like Francis. Exposing the video could certainly ruin Francis's reputation, but at the same time, I'd be dragged into the storm too. And after all this time dealing with Francis, I've come to realize how little I really knew him. When I first met Francis, his career was already taking off. His life was full of praise and applause. Even then, he didn't choose to be with the woman he claimed to love, Miranda, but instead picked me, the most strategically beneficial option for marriage. The Francis I thought I knew was humble, cautious, and polite. But ever since his dirty deeds were exposed and I began divorce proceedings, I've seen the selfishness, arrogance, fury, and cruelty hidden beneath that gentlemanly mask. He was the one who cheated. Yet somehow he believed the villain was me for daring to expose the truth. Even when I was still in the hospital and he thought I hadn't gone through with the abortion, he was still trying to manipulate me with lies and sweet talk. But once he learned I had terminated the pregnancy, his real reaction confirmed it all. He was a volatile, two-faced man who didn't bother to hide his extremes. Even if I was bitter about it, I knew better than to push him into a corner. A cornered dog will bite. And for me, that wasn't necessary. I'm still young. I have a long life ahead of me. I can't stay entangled with this parasite. Yes, he hurt me, but if I let myself live in hatred, I'll never truly escape him. Taking half his wealth and cutting him out of my life forever, that's the real victory. Once the divorce agreement was signed, everything went smoothly according to the plan. But right after all the assets had officially been transferred to my name, Francis showed up downstairs at my company to confront me. He was furious, practically unhinged, shouting, "Victoria, how could you break your promise?" I was baffled and couldn't be bothered to argue with him, so I turned to leave, but he blocked my path and shoved his phone in my face, demanding, "Playing innocent now? Go on, explain this to me." I glanced at the photo on his screen and couldn't help but laugh out loud. In the background of the photo was the building outside Francis's company. Centered in the image was a white sedan with a bright red banner hanging across it. I zoomed in with my fingers. The banner read, "Thanks to Mr. Francis from TX Company for taking such excellent care of my fiancé." Apparently, this little stunt was pulled off by Miranda's fiancé. I had to admit, the guy was a genius. Though, I was curious, how did he find out? All the way from miles away? Seeing me laugh only convinced Francis even more that I was the one behind this mess. He lost it, grabbed my collar, and growled. "Didn't you say you'd delete the video after taking the money? How the hell is my company supposed to go public now?" I smiled slightly. "So you really thought that deleting the video would erase your sins from the world's memory? Why don't you ask your dear first love if she might have leaked it?" Honestly, I couldn't say for sure that Miranda was the one who let the secret out, but I said it anyway, just to drive Francis over the edge. Maybe he'd already suspected Miranda, because after I said that, he shot me a venomous look, then immediately pulled out his phone, probably to call her. But just then, an old hand suddenly reached in front of him and gave him 2 hard slaps across the face. Francis thought I hit him and was about to explode until the hand grabbed his ear and twisted it violently. The furious figure standing before him was none other than my ex-mother-in-law, Francis's biological mother, Regina. Even though I stood right there, Regina treated me like I didn't exist. Her full attention was on tearing into Francis. She slapped him again and again, cursing him for getting involved with Miranda all over again. "When I speak, do you think I'm just farting into the wind? How could you get back with that filthy tramp? Didn't I tell you that if you went back to her, you'd no longer be my son? Are you trying to kill me with anger? Well, fine, when I die, I'll drag you to hell with me. And don't even start with 'she seduced me,' flies don't land on clean food. You threw yourself at her and gave her family everything they wanted, didn't you? You're so damn pathetic. I should have never given birth to a piece of crap like you." It was the first time I had ever heard Regina speak so many words. In my impression, she had always been a quiet woman. Francis and I had been together for nearly 3 years. Yet I had only met her 3 times, and in those 3 rare encounters, she always maintained a polite smile, said everything was fine, and never voiced an opinion about anything. So naturally, I had a good impression of her. Francis, on the other hand, didn't seem close to her at all. In fact, he was rather distant. He seldom video called her, and barely mentioned her in conversation. Once, I asked him why he wasn't close to his mom. He told me that she had been too strict with him as a child, and that he simply couldn't bring himself to be warm with her anymore. Back then, I actually felt sorry for him. Now, watching Regina's face twist into something almost monstrous with rage, I suddenly remembered the day I had my abortion, the look on Francis's face when he turned on me out of nowhere. The kind of selfish, violent man he is, it's highly likely he became that way because his mother is even scarier. As Regina's tirade rained down on Francis, the truth behind the banner incident gradually became clear. Apparently, in an effort to win over her future mother-in-law, Miranda had gone to Regina's house to make peace after returning to her hometown. After all, they had broken up years ago because Regina disapproved of her. Miranda thought that if she just opened her heart and sincerely apologized, Regina would let bygones be bygones and support their reunion. She couldn't have been more wrong. Regina slapped her across the face multiple times, hard enough to split Miranda's lip, and then stormed to Miranda's house to broadcast her good deeds with Francis to anyone within earshot. Regina's exact words reportedly included, "But we're not limited to, that Miranda of yours traveled halfway across the country to warm my son's bed. Wrecking his marriage? Disgraceful. Fine. Then, I'll make sure your whole damn family loses face. I knew from the start your family was low class. And Miranda? She's a brainless lunatic. As long as I'm alive, I'll never let her through my door." It's been what, 6, 7 years since they broke up, and she's still clinging to my son? Calls it love? Love my ass. She's just after his money. Plain and simple, as luck would have it. When Regina showed up to cause a scene at Miranda's house, Miranda's fiancé just so happened to be there, drinking with her father. Even though Miranda's parents tried to stop the chaos, it was too late. Her fiancé heard every last word. He flipped the table and smashed a beer bottle over her father's head, And yet, this very same violent man drove hundreds of miles just to hang a banner outside Francis's company? Something didn't add up. There had to be more going on. But that was no longer my concern. I turned to leave. Just as I was about to walk away, a burly man burst through the crowd and grabbed the hand Regina was using to slap Francis. Regina looked up at him and delivered a line so dramatic. It froze me in my tracks. She said, "You? What do you want?" The man sneered, his face grim. "I'm here for my compensation. Your precious CEO's son slept with my fiancée, a woman I've never even touched. He had her first. So you, as his mother, why don't you tell everyone here, how much do you think he owes me?" The already chaotic scene exploded into a new wave of madness. And the moment Francis realized who this man was, his first instinct was to run. But the crowd gave Francis no chance to escape. Wherever he ran, the wall of people moved to block him. The burly man seized the moment and delivered an Oscar-worthy performance, the weeping tough guy. With nowhere to run, Francis finally turned to him and asked, "How much do you want?" The man lit up instantly and named a sky-high price. Francis was furious. "Why don't you just rob me at gunpoint while you're at it?" But the man, clearly a master of emotional manipulation, fired back. "Oh, when you were sleeping with her, it was some grand love story. But now that it's time to pay, love doesn't seem so grand anymore." "Huh? What's the matter? Your love isn't worth that much." Someone in the crowd even shouted. "That's not enough. Way too cheap." Everyone had their phones raised high. I thought to myself, Francis and Miranda were definitely going viral after this. This time, the entire internet would know exactly how much their love was worth. Amid the chaos, I slipped away. After everything about Francis was exposed, I started receiving sympathy and concern from all directions. But once people found out I had walked away with half of his fortune, that sympathy quickly turned into jealousy. I was sick of all of it. I filed for an extended leave from work. My boss approved it immediately. Just like when he found out I was divorced, he didn't hesitate to say, "Happy single life. You'll never know how good singlehood is until you've been through a divorce." I stayed in the Maldives for over a month, with the sea breeze in my hair and salt water on my skin. I transformed. Turns out, healing from heartbreak isn't all that hard. You just need to live better than the person who hurt you. Every day, Sophia sent me juicy updates from afar. After the scandal broke and Francis had a total falling out with his mother, he finally decided to be true to himself. He made a grand public declaration. He loved Miranda. They had missed so many years. But in the end, her persistence helped him realize his true feelings. He was going to marry her and spend the rest of his life with her. If they had hurt anyone in the process, he sincerely apologized and was willing to take responsibility. He emphasized that he had already given most of his assets to me, his ex-wife, and that he would also help Miranda return the bride price to her ex-fiancé as compensation. But love, he said, was never a crime. He hoped the public would respect and bless their relationship. Most netizens responded with sarcasm. "We respect and bless them, just stay locked together so you can't ruin anyone else's life." Of course, there were a few soft-hearted souls who actually cried, calling Francis a truly responsible good man. He even gained a weird little fan base, people who couldn't seem to see through the mess. But karma didn't wait long. Just after his big romantic stunt, Francis got publicly humiliated again. Miranda's parents showed up at his company from miles away and created a massive scene. Their demands weren't excessive, just one little thing, 1 million yuan in bride price, and a director-level job at Francis's company for Miranda's younger brother. "If you love our daughter that much, surely you won't hesitate over a measly million, right? With a company this big, how could we trust it in outsiders' hands? Of course, family should help you run it. Tony's her only brother, you're going to marry her. You can't just ignore him." Tony graduated from a technical college, majored in computer science. It's totally relevant. Why can't you give him a position? Miranda's parents were truly masters of shamelessness. After their relentless badgering, Francis was once again trending online. And Miranda? She could do nothing but cry, completely powerless. No longer the brave woman who once fought for love. Chapter 6. The whole farce ended with Francis paying Miranda's parents 500,000 yuan, signing an agreement, and effectively buying Miranda out of his life. But the scandal left a lasting mark. Francis's company's investors lost faith in him and began pulling out one after another. The IPO became a distant dream, and I couldn't help but admire my own foresight. The moment I received my shares, I sold them off at a low price to another shareholder in the company, cashed out early. Now, that poor guy who bought my shares is probably crying in the office bathroom. As Francis's misfortunes piled up, the internet declared me a woman of good fortune. A lucky woman will never stay in an unlucky home. Francis's career soared after marrying her, and the moment they divorced, he crashed. Isn't it obvious who carried the luck? I heard she's a fund manager. Whatever she's investing in, I'm buying. With the whole internet begging me to return to work, I couldn't let them down. I ended my leave early and flew home. When I strutted back to the office, full of confidence, I ran into Miranda one evening after work. She didn't look like someone basking in the glow of love. In fact, she looked utterly drained, years older than she did back when she chased Francis across the country. She asked to talk. I said, "Sorry, my time is valuable." I walked past her. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing her arm, covered in disturbing bruises and discoloration. I stared at her in shock. She gave a bitter smile. "He did this." Miranda then told me her story. After marrying Francis, they moved into that infamous love nest he had bought. I thought it was the start of happiness. Who knew it'd be the beginning of a nightmare? My parents kept showing up, harassing us and asking Francis for money. He finally snapped and hit my brother. My parents called the police. Francis was detained. I felt so sorry for him. When he was released, I made a big welcome dinner and even prepared willow branches. As tradition says, they ward off bad luck. But the moment he saw the willow, he exploded, said the biggest bad luck in his life was me. That was the first time he hit me. After that, it was like he was possessed. Anytime things didn't go his way, he'd hit me again. "You must be thrilled to see me getting what I deserve, right?" She looked at me with teary eyes, clearly fishing for some emotional reaction. I was speechless. "You came all this way, just to make me happy with the story?" Miranda froze, then immediately stumbled to explain. No. I mean, I've paid for my mistakes. I was hoping you could forgive me." These days, watching Francis suffer, I finally realized he never loved me. He's always loved you. He often lingers downstairs at your place but doesn't dare to go up. Seeing him like that breaks my heart. I've done wrong, to him and to you. The only thing I can do now is give him back to you. I was absolutely disgusted. My face twisted in disbelief. "Are you seriously out of your damn mind?" But Miranda looked painfully sincere. "He really does love you. This is the last thing I can do for him." I honestly wanted to split her head open and see what kind of mush was sloshing around in there. In that moment, I found her pitiful, pathetic, and completely infuriating. For the first time, I truly understood why my ex-mother-in-law Regina hated her so much. She was like a slug, slimy, clingy, and nauseating. To be fair, her thoughts and behavior were shaped by her upbringing. Her family never gave her proper education, only drained her dry. Like parasites, she was a pitiful person, but she was already 32 years old, well-educated, and had had countless chances to walk away from her toxic family, from a terrible relationship. But she didn't. She handed her entire life over to others. Her parents didn't love her, so she clung to romantic love. When the man didn't love her, she turned to self-destruction. She ached for everyone who dragged her into the depths of misery, except for herself. And when she stood there in front of me, righteously spewing all that emotional garbage, there was even a saintly glow in her eyes. She probably thought her sacrifice was something noble. But if a person doesn't even know how to love themselves, how can anyone else love them? I told her, sincerely, "Call the police. Get that asshole locked up." That's the last piece of advice I'll give you. I didn't call the police for her. Everyone, in the end, must be responsible for their own life. And she didn't call, either. Chapter 7. The last time I heard anything about Francis, it wasn't from Sophia, it was from the internet. He made the trending list again, but this time, under the criminal news section. The keyword, dismemberment. Yes, he killed Miranda. Not by poisoning, not by some subtle method, he dismembered her. He chopped her up, cooked her, and fed her to the dogs. A night shift sanitation worker discovered the remains while sorting garbage and immediately called the police, according to the case summary released by the authorities. Francis confessed that the murder was a result of a moment of impulsiveness. He claimed he hadn't been sleeping well and had taken sleeping pills the night before. He told Miranda to wake him up at 7 a.m. because he had an important meeting the next day with a key business partner. I reminded her multiple times. She promised she would wake me, but that morning, she didn't. I asked her why, and she said she felt sorry for me and wanted me to rest. In that moment, I felt nothing but despair. I don't know if you understand the feeling, living with someone who never gets the point, who always messes things up, who constantly holds you back. I was sick of it. I hit her. I'd hit her before, but this time, when I came to my senses, she was already dead. I looked at her body and felt nothing but annoyance. All I could think was, she's dead. And she's still a problem. My life is over. So I cut her up. The internet was stunned. Some called Francis a monster. Others lamented that he had squandered such a promising life. Still others didn't buy his story. They questioned how anyone could possibly kill and dismember their wife simply because she forgot to wake them up. But after the shock wore off, I thought Francis was a monster. But what he said was also honest. Back when Regina disapproved of their relationship, one reason was their college entrance exam gap, over 200 points. Francis had ranked top 3 in the entire city. But just to be with Miranda, he gave up the chance to attend a prestigious university in the capital and chose a lower-tier college in the south. That day Regina beat him in front of me. She screamed that he couldn't be with someone who would drag him down forever. She would never allow it. I think Francis really did love Miranda back then, but after their first breakup, he probably realized, somewhere deep down, that being with her would mean falling. Again and again. Too proud to admit that. He blamed the breakup on Regina. Later, when he started a successful business, even though he still thought of Miranda, he never went back to her. Instead, he married me. That, in itself, was his way of cutting ties. But people are complicated. And when she showed up one day, reckless and determined, having traveled all that way, he lost his mind. He went so mad. He forgot why they had broken up in the first place. And after tearing things apart with me, he believed he could do anything, even love a person who only dragged him down. Then, through a series of coincidences, they got back together. But this time, she came carrying more weight than ever. And the more she carried, the faster she pulled him into the abyss. Eventually, with his career in shambles and his reputation ruined, he snapped. He didn't kill her just because she failed to wake him up. He killed her because, in countless seemingly trivial moments, he came to see Miranda as someone who only ever held him back. In the end, Francis was simply an incredibly selfish man. Because of his toxic upbringing, he had initially used his relationship with Miranda as a form of rebellion against his mother. Maybe, he never really loved her. What he loved was the version of himself who dared to defy his mother. So when he actually married Miranda, and life's frustrations began piling on, he suddenly realized his mother had been right. Again. And in that moment of shame and fury, he killed Miranda. The tragic thing is, Miranda could have escaped. If she had listened to me, if she had called the police earlier, but if she were the kind of person who would go to the police, would she have ever driven hundreds of miles to beg a man who had already discarded her? The wheels of fate had started turning long ago, rolling steadily toward a destiny that now seems all too inevitable. The only saving grace is, I got out in time. Story 2. When I transferred to this school, Eric had already dated all the pretty girls around. He would joke with his friends, I'd rather date a dog than ever be with Zoe. I am Zoe. But a month later, his best friend cornered me against the wall and confessed his feelings. Seeing the marks on my body, Eric suddenly lost it. Who gave you permission to touch her? Chapter 1. Could you please help me pass this to Eric? I took the light pink love letter. This was the 11th one this month. Everyone knew I was Eric's childhood friend, and they also knew that no matter who he liked, it would never be me. So, they felt at ease asking me to deliver their love letters. But as usual, when Eric received it, he would raise an eyebrow, think about who the girl was, and then scoff. My standards aren't that low. He threw the letter back into my arms. Someone at your level? I can't afford that. His friends all burst into laughter, and the look Eric gave me was filled with mockery. Why? Because the first love letter Eric ever tore up was mine. Chapter 2. Eric and I were childhood friends. Our parents got along well, so they naturally assumed we were close too. In the beginning, we were, until an unexpected incident. It was during a game of truth or dare. Eric got a dare, and someone asked if he dared to kiss me. Back then, we were both young, with a strong sense of competitiveness. He asked, "Do you mind?" I hesitated for just a moment, and then he leaned in and kissed me. TCH. It's nothing special. From that moment, I was no longer seen as the untouchable high achiever, the top student of our grade. Instead, I became one of Eric's possessions. Chapter 3. Eric wasn't doing well academically. Because of this, his parents hoped I could help him study, but on the day we planned to meet at the library, I waited for almost an hour alone at the bus stop. Eventually, I found out through his social media that he was on a 10-game winning streak at an internet cafe. I took a cab to that shady internet cafe. The place was filled with smoke, and there was even a girl sitting on Eric's lap. They were all cheering for him. Then he suddenly turned his head and met my gaze. He responded with a wicked smile. Chapter 4. Zoe. Are you king insane? Eric got scolded by his parents, and they took away all his allowance. He couldn't go to the internet cafe anymore because I had told on him. You shouldn't be going to places like that, I said, enunciating each word carefully. Back then, I harbored feelings for him, stubbornly and self-righteously believing I was doing what was best for him. But all I got in return was his growing resentment. Eric grabbed my chin. What right do you have to control me? Did you really think that just because I kissed you once, you're my girlfriend? What a joke! Chapter 5. Eric had a handsome face, paired with his rebellious personality. He quickly became popular at school. Many girls wanted to win him over, and he didn't refuse anyone. Flirtatious yet heartless, even just playing a casual game of basketball. His excellent skills would draw cheers from the crowd, but Eric didn't hold back when he threw the ball, aiming it harshly and without hesitation at me. Sorry, he said it nonchalantly, watching as I clutched my arm in pain. His apology delivered with a carefree smile. You won't hold a grudge against me, right, my dear little childhood friend? And so, everyone knew that he hated me. Chapter 6. Gradually, I came to accept this reality. I carefully put away the love letter I had once written for Eric, with every word crafted with a young girl's feelings, and stopped paying attention to his affairs. But in front of our parents, we still had to pretend to get along. Eric's grades have been improving recently. It must be thanks to Zoe. I've prepared some fruit. You all should have some. Eric's mother beamed with a smile. Eric looked like he was in a good mood too, but he subtly gave me a warning look. His improvement in grades, of course, wasn't thanks to me. It was because he had recently been dating the school's top student. They often had study sessions after school. That is, until the day I accidentally caught them kissing in an empty classroom. Chapter 7. I had already tried to remove Eric from my world, but we attended the same school, always running into each other. As the top student for years, I had just been awarded the city's model student title and needed to give a speech on stage the next day. So, I stayed after school the day before to rehearse with the teacher. I passed by that empty classroom. The sounds from inside were soft and intimate. I turned my head slightly, and through the gap in the curtains, my eyes met Eric's. He was pinning the girl down on a desk, but even in that brief moment of looking up, he caught me, and I knew then, he had marked me down in his mind once again. Chapter 8. The school beauty, Eric's girlfriend, had always been the second best student in our grade, and she was also my classmate. But after she started dating Eric, her grades visibly declined. It quickly caught the attention of the teachers. They called me in. Has she been acting strange lately? Or hanging out with anyone bad? I just shook my head. I don't know. But the truth couldn't be hidden for long. Somehow, word got out that I had been questioned. Eric and the school beauty's relationship was exposed, and his parents found out. His father, who had a violent temper, took him home and gave him a beating. That day, no one was home at my place. Eric barged into my room, uninvited. So, I underestimated you. He pushed me, and I lost my balance, hitting the desk. The drawer fell open, spilling its contents. Eric's hand froze on my wrist. Because we both saw it, the light pink love letter on the floor. It had my name, and Eric's name on it, and he was all too familiar with my handwriting. Chapter 9. Oh, so it's jealousy? Eric had a look of sudden realization. He tore up the love letter, then grabbed me. I struggled. I didn't rat you out. He raised an eyebrow. There's something more important than that now. Eric picked up the scissors from the desk and cut off a lock of my hair. Zoe, I'd rather date a dog than ever be with you. Chapter 10. Eric used that lock of my hair to boast about the school beauty, but it didn't change his fate of being transferred by his father. On the day Eric left, the school beauty cried for a long time. I thought they would last forever, but just a few days later, she received intimate photos of Eric with another girl, and my lock of hair, along with the uneven strands at my temple, just ended up as something unresolved. Chapter 11. The school beauty's grades plummeted after that. She begged me to help arrange a meeting with Eric. Just once. She wanted to see him. I couldn't refuse her, but I didn't expect that when I went. Eric was drunk at the bar. He recognized me and forcefully made me stay. Zoe, isn't this exactly what you wanted to see? He smiled in a way that was chilling. And so the next day, the school beauty received photos of Eric pinning me against the door of the private room, forcefully kissing me. Chapter 12. The school beauty and I had a falling out. The incident spread, and I became the one everyone pointed fingers at. I knew she ratted him out because she couldn't have Eric, so she sabotaged them out of jealousy. Exactly. And this time she even got an opportunity out of it. She was supposed to help them get back together, but ended up getting involved herself. Isn't that just disgusting? I became the target of isolation, but the irony was, they all seemed to forget that it was Eric's own flirtatious and heartless behavior that started all of this. Chapter 13. On the day I transferred out, Eric made a point of showing up to watch the spectacle. What? You couldn't stick it out anymore? His words were full of mockery. Zoe, you got what you deserved. And I just numbly nodded. So did you. Eric burst out laughing. He leaned in close to my ear and whispered, but it's okay. Because now, in their eyes, we're just a perfect pair of heartless scoundrels, aren't we? Really? But suddenly, I realized I was starting to hate you. Chapter 14. Eric was popular wherever he went. Just 2 months after transferring, he had already dated all the pretty girls at the school, but without exception, he was always the one to end things, leaving the girls desperately pleading for him to stay. I overheard someone pointing at me and asking him, "What about her? She's so pretty." But Eric just laughed indifferently. I'd rather date a dog than be with her. Besides, she's already my dog. But then, I heard someone object. Eric, there's no need to talk about a girl like that. Chapter 15. Luis was Eric's roommate and his closest buddy. I knew him, but not because of Eric. It was just a few days after I started at the school, and there was a heavy downpour. I ended up taking shelter from the rain with him in one of the school buildings. Apart from the sound of raindrops, there was silence, but as the rain began to let up, he suddenly spoke. "So, you're Eric's little childhood friend, huh?" Chapter 16. After transferring, I was placed in the same class as Luis. Eric was in the neighboring class, and his current girlfriend was my desk mate. To avoid a repeat of what happened with the school beauty, I changed seats and became Luis's desk mate instead. I felt a bit awkward for some reason, but Luis didn't. He hurriedly tidied up his books, even helped me move my desk, and smiled shyly. I've never had a desk mate before. You don't mind, right? When Luis smiled, he revealed 2 adorable dimples, but I didn't reciprocate his warm gesture. I just lowered my eyes and nodded. Chapter 17. The fact that Eric hated me didn't change just because I transferred schools. If anything, he became even worse. The more I tried to avoid him, the more he sought me out. Today was no different. The basketball court was on the way to the cafeteria. A group of girls cheered for Eric as he played. I heard the sound of the ball hitting the ground and instinctively raised my arm to protect my head, trying to run away. But it was too late. Bang! The pain I expected never came. I turned my head, completely stunned. Luis had somehow rushed over and shielded me with his body, taking the hit from the basketball on his shoulder. The ball dropped to the ground. Eric jogged over, his voice cold. "Luis, are you crazy?" Chapter 18. After the game, Eric blocked Luis and me. I was cautiously debating whether to offer to accompany Luis to the nurse's office. But Luis, with a carefree smile, said, "It's fine. I'm tough. I can handle it. What are you doing?" Eric was asking Luis. Luis's smile faded, and he slowly countered, "What are you doing? Why did you throw the ball at her?" Eric hesitated. "What does it have to do with you? I'm her desk mate." Eric gave Luis a complicated look. Then he turned to me with a mocking smile. "Quite the charm you've got." Luis stepped in front of me. "Eric, don't be an idiot." After a moment, Eric laughed. "What? Did you fall for her?" Chapter 19. Eric always looked at me with that confident, smug gaze, as if I wasn't his childhood friend, or even someone he hated, but rather his possession. Luis was still standing protectively in front of me. "Your families have known each other for years. You shouldn't. We share more than just that kind of relationship." Eric suddenly cut him off with a sneering laugh. "Want to hear about it?" I had a bad feeling, but it was too late to stop him. Eric pushed Luis's shoulder and said, slowly and clearly, "Her first kiss was with me. She transferred here because of me. She even wrote me love letters, saying how much she liked me." "So who the hell are you?" Chapter 20. I accompanied Luis to the nurse's office. There was a dark bruise on his shoulder. It was clear that Eric didn't hold back. If the ball had really hit me, the outcome would have been much worse. "Were you playing basketball or starting a fight? So reckless." The school nurse scolded him. "You're old enough to know better." "Hey, you there. Come help him with this ointment." I nodded and stepped forward. The sight of the bruise on his back was startling. "What are you staring at? Scared?" Luis smiled, nonchalantly. "Good thing it hit me. If it had been you, you'd be crying your eyes out. And it wouldn't be pretty." I applied the ointment on his back, murmuring, "Shut up." Outside the curtain, the nurse was tending to another student. "Why are you upset?" Luis was shirtless, and my hand trembled slightly as I applied the ointment. He turned his head, and those eyes, usually full of laughter, were suddenly calm. "He treats you like that, and you're not angry?" I shook my head. "I'm used to it. Why don't you fight back?" "It's pointless," I said quietly, gently spreading the ointment. "The more I fight back, the worse he gets. He's got issues. There's no reasoning with him, and his family's upbringing doesn't help. If I report him again, he'll just get beaten up, and then he'll take it out on me even more." Luis didn't say anything. I sniffed, staying silent too. But just as I finished applying the ointment and was about to wash my hands, he grabbed them. He carefully wiped the ointment off my fingertips, bit by bit. Then, "What about me? How do I look to you?" Chapter 21. Why are you running? As soon as I left the nurse's office, Luis caught up to me. He was slipping on his school jacket as he ran, covering up his toned physique. "What? Am I that scary?" "No." "Then stop running." Luis blocked my path, lowering his voice. "You think, with how close Eric and I are, I wouldn't know about your situation with him? Then why are you still bothering me?" There was a hint of accusation in my tone. Luis froze for a moment, then smiled. "What do you mean bothering? Desk mate. Have a heart. I took a hit for you. Aren't you going to repay me?" "I don't have a heart." It was written all over my face that I was trying to avoid this. But he couldn't help himself and ruffled my hair with a chuckle. "Fine. Heartless one." Chapter 22. When I got home, as soon as I stepped into the living room, I saw Eric. He was sitting on my family's sofa, and beside him were my parents. Seeing his unfriendly gaze, I suddenly had a bad feeling. "Zoe, come over." My mom's smile seemed a bit forced. "Sit down. Don't rush off to your room." I sat down near Eric, leaving one seat between us. My mom slid her phone over to me, and on the screen was a photo. It was a picture of me and Luis, walking side by side, with his hand ruffling my hair. Zoe, tell me, who is this boy? I glanced at Eric. The smugness was plain on his face. My dad stayed silent, lighting a cigarette. Seeing that I didn't respond, my mom started speaking in a serious, gentle tone. Zoe, you're in your final year of high school now. It's good that you've made friends since transferring, but there are boundaries. You know what's appropriate and what isn't, don't you? Yes. I took a deep breath. I'll change. At that moment, a message from Eric popped up on my phone. It was just a short sentence. Snitching isn't that hard, is it? The next second, I blocked and deleted him. Chapter 23. We're just friends. Nothing more. After sending Eric off, I stubbornly repeated to my mother, I was isolated before I transferred, and it wasn't my fault. I was the victim. I didn't do anything wrong, but my mother just sighed. I know you wouldn't, but I'm worried. I'll have Eric keep an eye on you. That boy has always looked out for you. What if I said he's lying, that he's changed? My hands clenched into fists. Trembling slightly, I stared at my mother, waiting for her response, suddenly wanting to tell her everything Eric had done to me, the isolation, the transfer, the bullying, but she just rubbed her temples. Zoe, then where did this photo come from? I want you to be an honest child. In that instant, I loosened my grip. Forget it. Chapter 24. The next day at school, I noticed the odd looks from my classmates. Thanks to Eric, everyone knew about the incident on the basketball court yesterday, where he and Luis had a fight over me. Luis acted like nothing was wrong, sitting at his desk, catching up on his homework. Hey, desk mate, let me copy yours. I glanced at his blank sheet. Why don't you do it yourself? He cleared his throat and pretended to stretch his shoulder, then winced in pain. With a pitiful tone, he said, See? Heartless one. You bullied me and won't even take responsibility. A few classmates turned to look at us, and my cheeks warmed. Shut up. Luis just laughed. Carefree and without a worry, I sat down and handed him my completed sheet. But then, my front row seatmate turned around. It was Eric's current girlfriend, Selena. Zoe, let's talk. Chapter 25. Luis grabbed my wrist. Looking up at Selena. What do you want? She blinked. What's it to you? Selena was well known in our grade. Pretty, curvy, and with a bright, straightforward personality. She knew a lot of people, even outside of school. Compared to me, new and unfamiliar with the environment, Luis was worried I might get taken advantage of, but I gently brushed his hand off. It's fine. I stood up. Let's go. We'll talk outside. Chapter 26. This photo, you're familiar with, right? It was the picture of Eric forcefully kissing me in the private room. When Selena showed me the photo, I wasn't surprised. After all, it had caused quite a stir before I transferred, so it wasn't shocking that she knew about it. But her next words caught me off guard. From the angle of this photo, were you willing? Selena zoomed in, stopping at the part where Eric had my hands pinned against the wall. She said, he was out of line, wasn't he? Chapter 27. Back in the classroom, Luis leaned in and quietly said, Eric broke up with Selena. Selena had just sat down too. Her back was straight, showing no sign of heartbreak. I asked him, are you sure Eric was the one who broke up with her? Because just before we came back to the classroom, Selena had asked me, Zoe, do you want to get back at him? Chapter 28. After school, I was slowly packing my bag. Luis called out to me, Zoe, look at the back door. It was Eric. He wore his school uniform sloppily, one hand in his pocket, leaning against the doorframe. His fingers tapped rhythmically as he tilted his head, giving me a sidelong glance. I instinctively tightened my grip on my bag strap, but Eric walked right in. With a loud thud, he slammed a can of Coke onto my desk. Your mom said I'm supposed to take you home from now on, to prevent any more trouble. As he said this, he glanced over at Luis. Luis pushed the can of Coke back toward him. She doesn't need it. Chapter 29. What's it to you? Eric's gaze at Luis turned icy. Luis, there are some things you shouldn't get involved in. Then I'm telling you to. Don't be an idiot. Luis spoke slowly. Deliberately, we're friends, and I can't control your personal life. But when it comes to Zoe, don't go overboard. Oh, you've really fallen for her? Enough. The next moment, a cup of water splashed directly onto Eric's face. I closed the cup, as if making a decision. Eric, don't you get it? I don't need you. If you want to tattle or mess with me, do whatever you want. But right now, get out. Chapter 30. When Luis pressed the cold can of Coke against my cheek, I was still in a daze. What's wrong? Stunned? Or was throwing that water at him so satisfying you're still savoring it? I frowned and took the Coke from his hand. You talk like you got some benefit out of it. Luis's hair was still dripping. When I splashed Eric with the water, he quickly grabbed a cup nearby. Then, he threw it at Luis, who was standing in front of me. Luis wiped his face and didn't say a word. Eric smashed the cup down and, before storming off, left me with a threat. Zoe, if you've got guts, don't come back. I opened the can of Coke and took a sip. Aren't you going to dry off? Luis sighed. Heartless one, you won't even hand me a napkin to dry myself. I put the can down and started feeling around in my pocket. I'll find one. The playground was mostly empty after school, with only a few people still playing basketball. Luis and I sat side by side on the bench. Hey, found one. I looked up, and my words got stuck, because Luis had picked up the can of Coke and taken a sip, from the exact spot where I had just drunk. Cough. His ears turned a bit red as he put the can back down. Didn't see any napkins, so I figured a sip of Coke would do. Okay? Chapter 31. Luis and I stayed out for a long time. When we left the cinema, I hung up on the third call from home. He glanced over at me. You really aren't going to answer? I replied calmly. It's late. Eric's probably done making up a story about how I snitched. Why pick up? Just to get yelled at? Luis snickered. Never thought you had such a rebellious side. We found a barbecue place and decided to have a late-night snack. We didn't bring any money, so we had to rely on Luis, the rich but silly kid, to cover it. Well, even good students drink beer? 2 bottles of beer sat on the table. I shook my head. The owner gave them to us. Gave them to us? Do we not look like high schoolers? You look like a spoiled rich kid skipping class with a girl. Luis laughed again. I couldn't help but smile. Just a little. He opened a bottle and poured 2 cups. Well, then the spoiled rich kid will show you how it's done. The beer didn't taste great. I choked a bit, and amidst the aroma of barbecue and the buzz of the crowd, I heard Luis put his cup down. I can't stand him anymore either. Chapter 32. I've been his childhood friend for over 10 years. Eric wasn't always like this. He used to just be a bit arrogant. Liked to say the opposite of what he meant. Stubborn. But he never purposely bullied anyone. I remember when we were little, I got bullied once, and he stood up for me. Ended up covered in bruises. I asked him about it, and he refused to say a word. His dad had a terrible temper, and if I hadn't gone to his house and cried, I was afraid his dad would have beaten him to death. I think it was sometime in middle school when I heard from my parents that his mom had an affair, and his dad found out and beat her. Eric tried to stop him, and he got hit too. It was a disgraceful thing, and their family was never the same after that. Eric, well, he started going down a different path, and then, it was that game of truth or dare when he began to hate me. Luis clinked his glass against mine. It's okay. You've put up with him for years, and that's enough. He chose his own path, and he has to bear it himself. I didn't respond, just took another sip of my drink, but the next second, he grabbed my glass. Stop drinking. You're not some spoiled rich kid. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, then you stop drinking too. Spoiled kid. I leaned in closer, my eyes bright with amusement. If you get drunk, I can't drag you back. You're built like a bear. Luis's ears turned red, and he pulled back, muttering, Why are you getting so close? Can't you have a little ladylike decorum? Chapter 33. When I got home, It was already late at night. All the lights in the house were on. Clearly, no one had gone to bed. I pushed the door open, feeling the gazes from the living room as I changed my shoes and took off my bag. My face expressionless. "Zoe, come over." It was my mother who spoke first. This time, the living room only had my parents. Eric, that jerk, was thankfully absent. I walked over, standing in front of them, head held high, showing no expression. "Do you not realize what you did wrong?" This time it was my father speaking. His next words came out heatedly, "Staying out until this hour. Not answering calls. Ignoring messages. Do you even know what you're doing?" "Zoe." My mother gently tugged at my father's sleeve. "Tell Mom the truth. Were you out with that boy from the last photo? Did you do anything you shouldn't have? Didn't Eric already tell you everything?" I looked up, and for the first time, I felt so calm inside. "I already said before. He's just a classmate. He got hurt, so I went with him to the nurse's office. That's all. Why did you need to go with him?" My father countered. "Because he got hurt protecting me." I threw my bag down on the floor. "Because your obedient Eric doesn't like me, hates me, and threw a ball at me. If it weren't for him taking the hit, I'd have been the one hit." The room fell silent for a moment. I took a deep breath, looking at my parents' stunned faces, and I smiled. "Still don't believe me?" I bent down, rummaging through my bag, my hands trembling as I searched for my phone. When I found the photo, my hands were shaking even more. "Here, look." I handed them the photo of Eric forcibly kissing me. "If you don't believe what I say, then see for yourselves." Chapter 34. After finally finishing my conversation with my parents, I went back to my room. As I lay down on my bed, feeling as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, I received a message on WeChat. It was from Luis. "Did your family catch you drinking? Remember to drink some lemon water. I put a lemon in your bag. And hey, no more drinking outside next time, or I'll tell your parents. Also, don't take your family's words to heart. When it comes to Eric, you've got me." I stared at the screen and, for some reason, I couldn't help but laugh. Luis was the one who lived with Eric, and yet now he was the one more worried about me. I recalled my parents' shocked and bewildered expressions, and a strange feeling welled up inside me. I remembered how my mother reacted. She turned off the phone screen and handed it back to me. "Zoe. Mom understands now. I'm sorry, but you know about Eric's family situation." I shook my head. "I understand." I hadn't turned on the light. The room was dark, and I just lay there staring at the ceiling. Then I heard a noise from the balcony. I got out of bed, stepping barefoot across the floor, and there, bathed in the soft moonlight, I saw the last person I wanted to see. Eric. Chapter 35. Eric's house was close to mine, but he was supposed to be living in the apartment near the school, with Luis. Yet there he was, sitting on the tree outside my window, just outside the wall, tilting his head as he looked at me. "Back from your little date with Luis?" I kept my face blank, grabbing the curtains to pull them closed. But he stopped me. "Zoe, look what I have here." He was holding something in his hand. I paused, and then I saw it. It was a lock of hair, tied with a string, the same lock of my hair he had cut off to placate the school beauty. Instinctively, I touched the uneven strands by my ear. Eric started to laugh. He spoke slowly, emphasizing each word. "This is proof you were my little simp." But I didn't spare him even a glance. "Then keep it, and enjoy being alone with it for the rest of your life. You jerk." Chapter 36. A few days later, it was time for the sports festival. Eric had been unusually quiet, with the citywide mock exams scheduled right after the event and the basketball games during the festival. He was probably too busy. Thinking about the mock exams, I recalled what Selena had said that day. Eric plans to cheat on this exam. He already bought the answers, but I got hold of his transaction records. Being his girlfriend, she had easy access to his phone and could unlock it, getting any records she needed. The USB drive with those records was already in my bag. I sat on the bleachers, lost in thought. The next moment, the familiar cold touch of a Coke can pressed against my cheek. Without looking up, I took the can. "Luis, Boys shouldn't drink so much Coke. Oh, now even the good student makes dirty jokes. Huh? Luis casually pinched my cheek. I slapped his hand. Quit messing around. He just chuckled and sat down next to me. You didn't sign up for any events? I opened the Coke. Too lazy. Too tired. Not interested. Luis grinned. Not a single athletic bone in your body. Huh? And what did you sign up for, Mr. Muscle? He kept smiling, completely oblivious to the sarcasm in my tone. I've got the basketball finals this afternoon. Come watch me, okay? Chapter 37. I agreed, but when I arrived at the game, no matter how much I looked around, I couldn't find Luis. In his place was a new player. As I moved closer to the court, I spotted Eric. He was wearing a white jersey with the bold number 6, and I immediately noticed the bright star sticker on the lower left corner of the jersey. That was Luis's jersey. A sudden sense of unease rose inside me. Zoe. The heavy, clear sound of the ball hitting the ground echoed. Eric unceremoniously grabbed my wrist. Running away? Don't you want to watch me play? At that moment, all eyes in the stadium were on us. He then lowered his head, speaking slowly, in a voice only the two of us could hear. Right by my ear. Or do you want to guess where Luis is right now? Chapter 38. Smack. The sharp sound echoed through the gym. I had just slapped Eric across the face in front of the entire school. He didn't even react. Didn't retaliate. For a moment, everyone was stunned, staring at us. I took a deep breath. Eric, that slap was for the time you threw that ball at me. The basketball hit the ground and bounced away. Once he snapped out of it, Eric grabbed my wrist. His cheek was flushed, and he looked at me with a dangerously intense gaze. Zoe, do you even know what the hell you're doing? Yes, I do. He had my wrist in a tight grip, and I couldn't break free, so I stopped trying. I already told my parents about you forcing a kiss. You caused me to be isolated, forced me to transfer, made everyone avoid me like the plague. Eric, you weren't like this before. Do you even recognize who you are now? Eric's hand froze. I took that moment to pull away, yanking my hand free from his grip. Tell me where Luis is. But instead of getting angry, he laughed. Where is he? Zoe, if you have guts, why don't you go find him yourself? Chapter 39. The school was big. I ran from building to building, checking every room, banging on doors and calling out Luis's name. Finally, I found him in an empty classroom on the top floor. Luis was just sitting there, perched on an empty desk, casually watching the basketball game through the window. Eric wasn't on the court, and Luis was locked inside. What are you doing here? Seeing me, he looked a bit surprised. How did you know I was here? I thought you'd see I wasn't on the court and just leave. I pounded on the door, furious. You're still joking. Don't you have any sense of danger? What if no one came, and no one found you? But you're here, aren't you? Luis pushed the door, confirming it was locked. I got locked in. I didn't expect Eric to pull this trick, luring me in and then locking me up. It's fine. Security will come around to check, and I'll get out then. I sniffed. I'm going to find a security guard to get the key. Hey, don't rush. Through the window. I stood in the hallway, locking eyes with Luis. He sat down casually on the desk, smiling with that goofy grin. Look at us now. Don't we look like Romeo and Juliet, staring at each other through a window? I couldn't help but laugh. What kind of Romeo acts like a big bear like you? Chapter 40. I finally got the door open, but by then, the basketball game had ended. I knew Luis had been looking forward to this game, and he had prepared for it for a long time. As we walked a few steps, I couldn't help but call out to him. Luis. I'm sorry. He turned his head. What are you apologizing for? If it weren't for me, Eric wouldn't have tried to get back at you, right? The hallway on the 4th floor was quiet. Everyone was at the sports field, and the school building was empty, making our footsteps echo. Luis chuckled softly, half-jokingly said, Yeah, it's been rough. So, how do you plan to make it up to me? I stopped walking, seriously thinking about the question, but he just laughed again, threw his arm around my shoulder. and pulled me along. Come on, doing a good deed a day. I'm not really going to make you pay me back. Heartless one. I thought of that day in the nurse's office, when he asked, "Then what do you think of me?" But even now, I still didn't dare ask what he meant by that. Luis smelled fresh, like laundry detergent. The strength of a young man's arm wasn't just pulling my shoulder, it felt like it was holding a heart that was about to burst free. I could hear someone's heartbeat, getting faster. I wasn't careful. And on the stairs, I missed a step. Careful! Luis's arm caught me completely. Behind me was the cold, hard wall. In front of me was his warm, broad chest. I leaned against him, my mind blank. Why is your face red? Luis suddenly lowered his head, his breath brushing against my cheek. So, with this kind of atmosphere, does this mean I can confess? Chapter 41. Luis and I walked out of the school building side by side. His teammates from the basketball team rushed over, playfully swinging at him. Where did you disappear to? You and Eric both decided to ditch. The coach was so pissed. He postponed the game to the day after tomorrow. Hearing that, I sighed in relief. Thankfully, it wasn't over yet. There was still a chance. Luis waved at them with a grin. The day after tomorrow. Then, with me on the team, we got this. Their eyes flickered over to me, making me feel a bit uncomfortable. So I tugged on Luis's sleeve. He looked down and, without hesitation, took my hand. Want to grab dinner? That action was a clear declaration. His teammates exchanged knowing looks, then gave Luis a thumbs up. My cheeks felt hot again. I tried to pull my hand away, but he only held on tighter. As we left the field, he lowered his head, teasingly. What's wrong? Am I embarrassing you? I was so mad I punched him lightly. You're just taking advantage. But in the next moment, we turned a corner and unexpectedly locked eyes with someone else. Eric was staring at our hands, fingers intertwined, with a cold smile. Oh, found someone to take you already? Chapter 42. Eric didn't linger, just threw that line at us and walked away. Luis let out a breath, gently stroking the back of my hand to comfort me. It's okay if he acts out again. I'm here to share the burden. But I couldn't shake a sense of unease. I just feel like I don't know him anymore. When we were kids, Eric and I lived up to the term childhood friends. Later, maybe because of family troubles, maybe because he strayed, he turned into what he is now. Luis reached out and ruffled my hair. I won't let him bully you anymore. Does that mean I've been really weak and I dragged you into this? He shook his head with a smile. If it were me, I'd struggle too, sometimes. When someone changes, but you still remember the good in them, it hurts more than if they just turned completely bad. And what about you? I looked at Luis and asked, will you change? Luis's smile faded a bit. Then he hooked his pinky finger around mine. If that day ever comes, you have to slap me, call me a jerk, and kick me out. Don't ever let yourself suffer. Chapter 43. Before the mock exams, I stayed home to study. My parents' attitude toward me had improved a lot, and there was a plate of fruit on the table that my mom had brought in. But just when everything seemed to be getting better, with only one day left before the exams, I realized something was wrong when Luis didn't show up. I called him over a dozen times, but no one answered. As I turned the corner in the hallway, someone blocked my way. Where are you going? It was Eric. He still had a bruise at the corner of his mouth and a faint cut near his eye. The unease inside me reached its peak at that moment. Where is Luis? He smirked, but there was a tiredness behind it. He grabbed my hand, slowly yet firmly, intertwining our fingers. Eric's eyes dropped to a barely noticeable red mark near the edge of my collar. It was from the other day when Luis had been gentle, not daring to go too far, leaving only a subtle, almost invisible mark. Yet, Eric saw it. His breathing was heavy, and he pressed down on my shoulder, repeating, where do you think you're going? It's none of your business. Doesn't matter. Eric lowered his head, suddenly tightening my school uniform collar, and his tone softened, almost pleading, forget him, Zoe. Let's start over. Chapter 44. Luis had been beaten and sent to the hospital by Eric, when I pushed the door open and saw Luis lying pale on the hospital bed. My breath caught. Luis. He opened his eyes and, seeing me, gave a faint smile. How did you find me? Sorry for making you worry. Luis was from out of town, studying here on his own. He hadn't notified his parents. It was his older brother who brought him to the hospital. This is my fault. He tried to sit up, propping himself up on the bed. Yesterday, I was being an idiot, deliberately provoking him, and the bastard didn't hold back. I couldn't fight him off, but he didn't come out unscathed either. It's just a scratch, nothing serious. I gently touched the small scar at the edge of his brow, remembering Eric's desperation earlier that day. I didn't feel a shred of satisfaction, seeing Luis like this. I only felt a deep ache. This can't just end like this, I said, my voice resolute. Luis, I'm going to make him apologize to you. He chuckled. How? The guy still has a thing for you. I don't want an apology if it means losing a girlfriend as heavenly as you. But I didn't laugh. I took a USB drive out of my bag and handed it to him. Luis, letting this go any longer is only going to hurt him more. Chapter 45. Zoe. I saw Eric standing outside the hospital. He knew I had come to see Luis. He followed me all the way here, but he didn't stop me or come upstairs. He walked towards me, and I took a few steps back. Eric. Eric stopped, looking at me steadily. Zoe, I've messed up before. Can you teach me to be better? I shook my head. Did you forget? I tried to teach you. That time at the internet cafe, you yelled at me for meddling and told me to get lost. His words faltered, his throat bobbing slightly, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I gave him a small smile. Eric, go and apologize to Luis. The light in his eyes disappeared completely. Eric took a few quick steps towards me, grabbing my shoulders, his voice trembling. Have you really fallen for him? Eric, this isn't about whether I like him or not. I pushed against his hands. You should see a therapist. So even you think I'm sick? Eric, I know what's going on at home. This is just a sincere suggestion. You beat Luis so badly. He could easily press charges against you. Eric's grip loosened. Zoe, don't choose him. Teach me. I'll learn. Can you teach me? It's too late. I looked at him. This boy who had become unrecognizable from the person I once knew. I'm only now realizing that I never liked you, but rather who you used to be, the stubborn but soft-hearted, slightly arrogant boy. That's why I kept forgiving you, over and over, but all I got was you pushing your behavior further. I had a feeling. After things fell apart at home, you started to envy me. You hated that I had a happier family, hated that I could live freely, hated that I had admirers but wouldn't lower myself before you, not even for a single kind word. Eric, I saw it that day. You pieced back together the torn-up love letter, and you tried to braid that lock of my hair into the red string, bit by bit. But you still hated me, and I couldn't understand why until I overheard your mom talking to mine, saying you'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I could hear Eric's breathing grow heavier. Finally, I took a step back and waved to Eric's mom, who was hurrying over behind him. It's okay, Eric. You just need to rest and take care of yourself. And after all the pain you've caused me, I won't pity you anymore. Chapter 46. Eric was soon put on academic suspension. Along with that, the evidence of his cheating, the USB drive, was handed in. The truth came out, and everyone learned about his mental health condition. I even received apologies from many people, including the school beauty, but there were also those who came to congratulate me, like Selena. Selena had noticed Eric's bipolar disorder not much later than I did, so she came to me, hoping to ensure that he would get the treatment he needed. A few times, when he was out drinking, he was calling your name, she said. When she handed me the USB drive, she was still smiling, calling your name, saying he liked you, and then cursing you for being so aloof. That's when I figured he must really be sick. Aside from the suspension, I heard that Eric's parents had finally divorced. Years of torment, struggle, and drama all ended with the revelation of his mental illness. Eric's mother quit her job to take care of him. When she called me, I was still sitting by Luis's hospital bed, reading a book, Zoe, about everything that happened. I apologize on his behalf. In the future, would you mind coming to visit him? But I gently declined. Luis missed the mock exams, but he was recovering quickly. He was upset about everything, playfully ruffling my hair again. I can't believe you took him down behind my back, without even letting me know. Makes me look useless. I smiled, trying to soothe him. Isn't it enough that I'm useful? Luis was about to be discharged soon. Out of nowhere, I asked him, back at the nurse's office, were you planning to confess to me? He froze, shifting his arm a little awkwardly. Why are you suddenly asking that? The answer was obvious. You spoiled rich kid. I rolled my eyes at him. Weren't you afraid I'd be one of those hopelessly romantic types, madly in love with Eric no matter what he did, treating him like my first love even after everything, and then turning around to accuse you of having improper intentions towards me? No, no, no. Luis shook his head vehemently. Impossible. You're way too smart for that. I don't believe it. Besides, who said it was just because I thought you were pretty? Chapter 47. Luis was actually a good student. Before I transferred, he had come to our school to compete. He and his friends would hang around in small groups, looking like a bunch of troublemakers. Typical bad boys. Yet, someone still joked, Luis, with your charm, you're bound to make a bunch of girls swoon. Huh? And he, ever the cocky one, responded, aw, you flatter me. My charm is rare. Saying a bunch is being modest. That's when I happened to walk past them. Back then, I hadn't been isolated yet, and Eric's condition wasn't that severe. There's a film crew outside the school gates. Maybe you should apply for a role as a spoiled rich kid, I said, carrying my books, my mouth moving faster than my brain. I didn't even look up as I walked past him. Luis's eyes lingered on me. I walked straight into the school building, not bothering to spare him a single glance. Oh wow, Luis. Looks like she didn't fall for your charms, someone teased. Back then, Luis had a record of school infractions thick enough to fill a notebook. Except for one line, no early relationships. He turned and saw the school bulletin board, right in the most prominent spot were my name and photo. Zoe. Luis stared at that photo, thinking for a full 10 seconds. Finally, he came to a conclusion. Well, guess I've met my match. Everyone burst into laughter, but a small, empty space in the boy's heart began to quietly fill. From that day on, Luis's notebook had 2 new lines. Stop acting like a spoiled rich kid. Make sure my name is next to hers.